Again, welcome everybody to today's morning satsang, Sunday morning satsang. And we find ourselves this time of year, not just this week, but before and after, we're in a festival season. And the theme, we celebrate every year in festival season, this festival, and often in many, many festivals. And this is not just in India, but also around the world. There's this festival of light. Yes, Diwali, festival of light, but most of the ceremony or ceremonial festival times has this element of light in it. The light of our own divine potential, awakening ourselves from the darkness into the light, or perhaps it's illustrated from the various stories of destroying the demons of darkness and that the light may prevail. And we see this theme in the great epics, and it's cross-cultural. We see this in various cultures because it's a universal truth that's of the soul. We're trying to awaken that light within us, and that's the essence of what the spiritual path. And it's not so much driving away the darkness, as Swami Kriyananda used to say, you cannot destroy the darkness with a stick. You have to turn on the light. And in an instant, you could have a dark tomb that has been dark for millennia, but in one instant, you let in the light and it's bright. And it only takes that one instant. And so it is with us on our path to self-realization. That one instant will drive away all the darkness. And this is underneath. All aspiration on the spiritual path is that quest for light. And that light is not created. We don't create the light. We uncover it. We allow it to shine by removing those things that obscure it. Now, I'd like to start today with reading, and this is, I chose the lyrics of one of Swami Kriyananda's songs. It's a fun song, and I'd like to read the lyrics. Now, if I was an excellent singer, I might sing them, but I think we're going to be safer if I read these. Find it here, okay. And it's Come Gather Round is the name of this song. He says, come gather round, let joy sing out today. Dawn now is breaking, and the mountains say, it's only light can make the darkness run. Lift up your head, greet the rising sun. Some people think to harvest happiness by weeding troubles, easing every stress. The trouble is that troubles never end. Get rid of one and you face its friend. It's in your heart the songs of joy resound. You'll hear but echoes in the world around. Wind on a hill sounds lonely if you're sad. Free if you're free, cheerful if you're glad. Friends, come with me. We'll chant of battles won. Shots not of anger, joy will be our gun. Before the light the veils of sorrow rend. In inner freedom, all delusions end. Troubles flee in the face of the light, and those troubles, you could say, are embodied in, I was mentioning, you might say we illustrate those troubles in the stories, classical stories, East and West, and oftentimes they take the form of demons. The driving away the demons, or the hero of the story conquers the demons, but really those outward stories are symbolic of our own inner journey. And there's one story that comes to mind, which is actually from the Greek tradition. And in this story, there's a hero, and the hero is Hercules. And Hercules was the son of Zeus and a mortal woman. But so he was a demigod, and he was endowed with great strength. And he was given certain labors to do, tasks that he had to do. And he was on the way to fulfilling one of those tasks when he passed through a forest, and he passed on the trail, passed by the residence where there lived a giant, and you could say a demon. And this demon had the habit of confronting any wayfarer, traveler on the trail. And he would demand to wrestle with the traveler. And he would wrestle him and eventually kill, because this demon was also the son of the earth mother, and he had tremendous strength, but it was qualified. And this is how Hercules accepted that challenge and was able to defeat that demon. So they engaged in wrestling. And in the Greek tradition, the winner of a wrestling match, the idea is you wrestle your opponent down to the ground and you pin your opponent on the ground. But this demon had a power, and he gained strength when he was in contact with the earth, because the earth was his mother. And so whenever he was in contact and pushed down into the ground, he got stronger and stronger, and he could not be defeated in that way. And so Hercules began to notice this. He would get him down, and the fellow would gain strength and revive, and he knew he could not conquer him. And so Hercules came upon a solution. He grabbed the demon, because he was very strong, and he held him up above his head in the air. And because the demon was separated from the earth, the demon began to lose strength. And eventually he became weak. And then Hercules grabbed him in a bear hug and crushed him in his arms. And that was how he defeated the demon. Now, it's a fun story, but there's a symbolic meaning to this. And when you look back on these old stories, that they seems quaint. Oh, demons! Oh, they were fighting the demons, and you see that in the tradition here in India as well. There's all these demons, but we have to look behind. What are those demons representing? And we think it's quaint that way. And demons don't exist, do they? I say that demons do exist, and those demons are demons of anger, demons of jealousy, demons of negativity, demons of greed, you name it. Demons of negative thinking are what we face in our life. And the demon, what they do is they attract us and they tempt us to enter into a wrestling match with them. In other words, get into the mud with the demon. And when you do, it's like there's this old saying in America, at least, he says, never wrestle with pigs, because the pig enjoys getting dirty, or the human doesn't like it. So don't wrestle with the demon, is what that here. And that's not how you're going to conquer it. To go down to the level where your problems exist, the real solution for overcoming the negativity in our life, the difficulties, those things that we want to overcome, is we have to hold them up into the light. We hold them up so they don't gain strength from where their origin is, which is in the lower realms. Hold them up into the light. This is how we solve our problems. And this is why did Lahiri Mahashai say, solve all problems with Kriya Yoga. And he was saying that what he was saying is through the practice of Kriya Yoga, we're raising our energy, we're lifting ourselves up into the light. And in that light, we find that solutions come, and we find that the problems themselves begin to dissipate. Now, how do we do this? How do we solve these demons? Well, we have to learn to summon that light. So Dr. Lewis, who was Paramahansa Yogananda's first disciple in America, was a dentist, and he was shown the light, and he was given the grace by Master to be able to summon that light at will. And so he went into ecstasy when he saw that light first. But he could days after, he would go to work. He was a dentist, and his office was up on the first floor, and so he would go up the stairs, and there was a landing there. Before he would go into his office, he would sit every day, and he would sit there and he'd look in the spiritual eye, and he would summon the light to him. And in that light, he would then go into the office and go to work. But you see, it was whatever problem come, he did not necessarily have a problem, but in the light, we find that you're happy if circumstances are neutral. If you see life in the perspective of the light, we find that it's cheerful. If you see the world through the spectrum of darkness, through the demon eye, you find that life is difficult. And the inner training that it takes for us to take off those dark shades of darkness and to put on to see light clearly is the essence of what the spiritual path is. But those demons, they do exist. Don't pretend that they're not there. But you see, I have found it very interesting is I tend to, if I'm in a bad mood, I objectify it in my mind. I say, get out, get out. And in a sense, yes, you objectify it as something that's not you. Because the truth is, those thoughts that come into, we don't create our own thoughts. We attune ourselves to thoughts. Thoughts are universally, you could say, floating in the ether, and according to our own vibration, we attract those thoughts, we draw those thoughts into ourselves. And so in a sense, as Dhyana likes to say, whenever she says, we attune to thought, what channel are you attuned to? As she would often say. And that's exactly it. But it's and to think of it, it's out of ourselves. Now a psychologist would say, well, it's really all subjective within yourself. I won't argue that. But it's helpful to think of it in this way. You are not your thoughts. And you're something beyond those thoughts. And you don't have to accept those demons. You don't have to accept the wrestling match with those demons. But if it catches you, remember the solution is to lift those up into the light. And I find that this is practically applicable when those of you who are Kriyabans, lift them up and lift your difficulties up into the light as you practice in your meditation. Try to aspire to that and draw upon the aid and the help of the great ones. Say, Master, this thought, this demon is too heavy. I can't do it. I can't lift this demon myself. But remember, as Saint Anthony was assailed by demons at a certain point of his life, he lived out 40, 80 years out in the desert as a hermit, and he found himself assailed by demons at one point. And he called and called, and he felt abandoned. He called to Jesus Christ, and he says, and in the moment of his torment, as all these demons were coming out of the walls at him, and he called, and Christ came, the light of Christ came, and then drove him away. And Anthony said, he says, Lord, Lord, where were you? Where were you? As he was being assailed. And Master tells this story. You can listen to it on audio on one of his talks. And he says, Anthony, I was always with you. And Anthony didn't see him, of course. And so the light is there, hiding. Master said it's right behind the darkness. The light of 1,000 suns, as it says in the Gita, is there, accessible to us. But it's our task to remove those. But it's a hard task. Yes, it is. But that's what the Guru is there for, is to help us, to support us. We have to do the action, but the strength behind that action comes with grace. And we find that even the highest mountain can be assailed, and we lift ourselves into the light. I like this little picture behind me. In the dawn of the light, with the coming of the dawn, the darkness of 1,000 ages is dispelled. And that's what we celebrate at this time of year in the festival season, the coming of the light. That light was truly ours and has been obscured for just a little while. Now it's returning. We summon that light and we celebrate that in the various festivals we have during this festival season. So God bless all of you at this holy season of the year. Joy to you.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this wonderful satsang. Thank you, Jayaji. I'd like to start with a reading from Whispers from Eternity, a brief reading. Master's words, open my inner eye. Open my inner eye, O fountain of light, that I may behold thee in the dance of the myriad-hued atoms. Burst open the doors of space, that I may see thee behind the swirling mist of material illusion. Behind thy walls of brilliant cosmic rays, thou art hiding. Open every portal in nature, that I may see thee everywhere. Master had on one of his talks, The Great Light of God, there's a beautiful story. He said he had a vision where he was sitting in Calcutta meditating, doing Kriya Yoga, and then suddenly he was in the body of a captain of a ship, and that someone had shot him and he could feel the blood flowing. And he thought, oh, I'm dead. And then suddenly he was back sitting in Calcutta doing Kriya Yoga, sitting on his bed. And he thought, well, how nice. I'm not dead. And then again, he went back into the body of the captain of the ship and he was lying down dead. He said, well, I guess I'm dead. And then he saw a light, the light of God. And he said, I asked that light, am I dead or am I alive? Am I sitting on my bed in Calcutta meditating, doing Kriya Yoga? Or am I dead in this body of a captain? And he said, the light said, neither. That's a beautiful thought. You're not sitting there meditating and you're not in that dead body. You are the light that has created this illusion. And Master said at that point, I released that delusion and I became the great light. And for all of us to keep that in mind, that we think that we're this or we're that, we're neither. We are the light. And behind that, I remember Guruji would say that he would argue with Divine Mother and he would just say, why have you even created us? Why have you created this world? And he said, it's like, it's not just a dream, it's a nightmare. And he said, it's a torture at times. And he said he would argue with Divine Mother. And she would say, no, he said, everybody's howling and screeching when they watch this movie, this show. And she said to him, tell them to look to my beam within. Just like in a movie theater, you're watching a movie, if it's a horror show, you're horrified. But if you look back at the projection booth, you see the light streaming there. And Divine Mother said, tell them, look to the light that's within. And it's such a wonderful thing to remember in our lives. As Krishna said to Arjuna, get away from my ocean of suffering. And Divine Mother didn't create this world to torture us, but to tell us to get away. Just like if you put your hand on a hot stove, you won't put it there again. And so she's telling us, come back into the light. And Master showed how we can come into the light. That's the thing. He didn't just talk about it. He told us, he shared, he gave practices, techniques. He told us how to come into the light. And as Jayaji was telling the story, Dr. Lewis, he came to Master and he was very skeptical. And he had read in the Holy Bible, in the Bible, where it says, if thine eye be single, thy whole body will be filled with light. And he came to Master, he didn't know him. His first meeting, Master must have, maybe had on robes, he had long hair, Indian, and here's Dr. completely conservative Bostonian from the East Coast of America. And he looks at this man and he says, do you know what this means? And Master said, I think so. And Doctor said, have you seen this light? And Master said, I think so. And he said, I think so. But of course he had. And he said, can you show it to me? And Master said, I think so. And he had Doctor sit down cross-legged in front of him. And he asked him first a wonderful, very important question. He said, will you love me always as I will love you? Before he showed him anything. And Doctor said, I could feel the love flowing. So I said, yes. And Master rubbed his hand. He said, good. Now I can take charge of your life. And then he put his forehead up against Doctor's forehead. Boom. He showed him the great light of God at the first meeting. Of course, he was his disciple in other lifetimes, obviously. And then he showed him the light of the 1,000-petaled lotus, the same meeting. Master told us, he showed us, and he's given us the practices to see the light within. And once one of his disciples, Durga Mata, she was feeling badly because they were having a Christmas celebration with Master about Washington. And she was, I think it was Encinitas, and she was feeling, I don't have a Christmas here, and there's no lights and no tree. And so she talked to Master on the phone, and she was saying, I'm sorry, I can't be there, and I don't have any Christmas. He said, Master said, listen, I'll give you a Christmas tree. And in her meditation, her whole spine was just lit. Every chakra was lit up with light. This is what we come to as we meditate more and more deeply. We not only see the light, we become the light. And this is why in our meditations, in our blessings, we bless here at the discipleship, at Kriya blessing, at a satsang blessing, we touch here because we want to always hold our consciousness up. Master said, keep your consciousness up. You can't go around with your eyes turned up all day, especially at your job, but you can hold your consciousness up. And he showed if you have your consciousness there, nothing can touch you. And Master, one time he had a wish, they were moving a wishing well at Mount Washington, I believe it was, and it fell on one of his feet. And he was in so much pain, and the disciples were so sorry, and they could see this pain on his face. And then he used that moment for a lesson. He said, now I'm going to show you. When I lift my consciousness up to the Kutastha, I will not feel any pain. And he lifted his consciousness up, and everyone could see that his face was normal again. Then he showed them, when I bring my consciousness down, you will see, I will be suffering. And he let his consciousness go down, and he was in pain again. And this is what we have to remember. We have everything in our hands to lift our consciousness up and to keep it there beyond the point of pain and suffering and struggle. And finally, we have to remember that we are that light, and we're becoming more and more until we're perfected in light. And Master would look at the disciples. He said, I see you all as light. You don't know how beautiful you are. And the disciples would feel, oh, I have this problem, I have that problem. But beyond that, there's just a glowing light in the eyes and the face and the aura. Just emit this light of God. And there was a very beautiful song of Swamiji's. There is, thy light within us shining. And we have to remember, it's there, and it can shine the more we allow it to shine. And in that beautiful festival of light, some of the words are about the light. Oh, children of light, forsake the darkness. Know it, that forever you and he are one. And I'll close with this beautiful story of Guruji with his sister. This is told by this is told by Hare Krishna Ghosh, and stories, we heard these stories at Ananda village, and they've been since been put in a little booklet. This is a beautiful story that Master's sister had asked him if he could show them something that they would believe in God. So Hare Krishna, he said, it was my mother and my aunt kept asking Master and Guruji, and that's what he called him. And Master said, no, I won't do it. And then he kept asking him, no, please show us something so that we will believe. And Master said, no, I'm not going to show you. So finally, I guess that was the Leela. So finally, Master said, okay. And there were a group of people there. And he said, okay, everybody leave except for these two, Hare Krishna's mom and aunt. And Hare Krishna was going out, and he said, no, Hare Krishna, you come back, shut the door and turn off the light. And he sat next to Hare Krishna, and his sister sat across from him. And Hare Krishna said, in that darkness, that Master said some shlokas, they didn't know what he was saying. And then he said, suddenly on the face of his mother and his aunt, there was an illumination, there was a beautiful light. And he said, afterwards, Master said, Om Shanti Shanti. And they said, Hare Krishna, open the door and turn on the light. And Hare Krishna, he was only like 15 years old or something. And he said, he looked at his mother's face. He said, Mother, what did you see? And she said, my son, I can't tell you how beautiful. And what a wondrous bliss we were in. She couldn't even talk. So then afterwards, Master told Hare Krishna, I've shown your mother and your aunt Bhagavan Jyoti, the light of God. And we have to know that Master is there. If we do our part, open ourselves with devotion. He said, through Kriya Yoga, dump the body and go into the eternal bliss of God. And in this life, that's our goal, not only to see, but to, in the end, to become, dump our body, dump our problems, and become that eternal light. God bless you all. Let's meditate.